Hello everyone, and welcome to this live video in which I'm going to be looking at a very high level, the neuroscience of niche. We'll be looking at three things that you need to do to make your brand really stand out and make it easier for your clients to choose to work with you. So just quickly to introduce myself, I'm Megan Hudson from Niche Intelligence. I am a dog-loving, tree-hugging marketing coach, and I specialize in helping coaches like you find and define your niche and market your practice without spending a cent. Today, I am going to be talking about, firstly, how the human brain loves novelty and why you need to gain and maintain the attention of your audience. Secondly, I'm going to be chatting quickly about why successful brands are memorable brands. And thirdly, I'm going to be talking about how successful brands engage the emotions of their clients and turn their clients into brand advocates. But before I go into this in any more detail, if you are based in Joburg, I'm going to be running a series of 5 weekly in-person workshops starting next Friday, the 24th of Jan. And we'll be dealing with, firstly, brand basics for coaches. So, just really getting all the basics in place. Secondly, the second workshop is going to be on planning and preparing for a brand photo shoot. I'm actually going to have my brand photographer there, and she's going to be taking photographs for those of you who would like photographs taken for a very special fee. The third workshop is going to be on developing a social media content strategy that will keep your online presence top of mind with minimal effort, and I've got a lovely free resource that I'm going to be sharing for that. The fourth workshop is going to be on a Facebook intensive, so doing things like this live and other things that you can do on Facebook. And in the final workshop, it's going to be on LinkedIn and Twitter. So check out the events on my business page in the events section, or drop me a direct message if you'd like more details, want to know more about what I'm doing. And for those of you who are not based in Joburg and watching from somewhere else in South Africa or around the world, I will be running these workshops are going to form the basis for modules in my 3-month program, my online group coaching program, How to Market Your Practice Without Spending a Cent, which I'm running in March this year. So let me know if you are watching this live or on replay. I can see that there is someone on with me. Welcome, and it's great to have you on. Let me know who you are. Just drop a comment in the comment section, and feel free as I go along to post any questions that you might have. I am going to, at the end of just before I end off, I'll go through the feed just to see if anybody has posted any questions and come back and answer them at the end. Or if you are watching on replay, I will get notifications, so I'll be able to respond if you've got any questions for me. So I want to ask you, when you first started watching this video, what was the first thing that you noticed? Is it possible that your eyes were drawn to the color that I'm wearing? I actually thought this t-shirt was brighter and more garish than it's coming out on camera, but but I'm still trying to make the point. So the human brain is drawn to novelty. Our ancestors were hardwired in the wild to notice anything that stood out from the ordinary, because and they needed to be able to discriminate very quickly whether or not it was a threat or not. So this is why it's so important that when we develop our niche and establish our brands, we have something that will gain and maintain our audience's attention. Einstein famously, there's that quote about the definition of insanity, doing the same thing again and again and again and expecting different results. And he was so right. we're hardwired to take note of things that grab our attention. Let me give you a little personal example. In December last year, I decided to update my branding and did a brand photo shoot. So I've been posting, the brand that I had online no longer reflected, or hadn't for a long time reflected, who I am now. So in the shoot, I made sure that I, included some really fun pics, like of me hugging trees, because that's part of my persona, blowing sparkles, confetti in the air, holding balloons. It was Christmas time, so I did a couple of Christmassy pics. But I just really made sure that it's kind of reflected and embraced who I am and where my brand is now. I cannot tell you what a response using those new photographs has elicited on social media. People have been contacting me that I know in person, but they've been connecting with me. And I think that's a really important thing. When you do something that makes your brand really stand out and pop, it gives people the chance to connect with you. And, we say that we're living in such a disconnected world. It really is an important thing to do. I've noticed much more engagement in all of my social media posts on all of the platforms. But I'm about to shoot myself in the foot when I share with you that the post that seems to have created the most engagement and stood out the most was one of that where I showed my dog. So, but it is still, it's still part of my brand. Everybody knows that my life just about revolves around my dog, my husband, and my mom, and not necessarily my dog's my husband and my mom, and not necessarily in that order. So the other thing that we need to do when we are creating our brands is to make sure that our brands are memorable. So 10 years ago, again, here's a personal story. 10 years ago, my brand, or I used to have a really short platinum blonde hairstyle. And, it was distinctive. I mean, I used to have people did comments about the hairstyle, and I really quite liked that version of me at that time. I dropped a coffee machine off for servicing somewhere in Pretoria at around the time that I had this hairstyle. And about a couple of weeks later, my husband and I went to a performance of Madame Zingara at Melrose, not Melrose, yes, it was Melrose Arch, the Protea Fire and Ice. Now that is a good, 30 or more kilometers away from where I had dropped my coffee machine off. And we had gone, my husband and I had gone all out. I was wearing a corset, we had face masks, we had really Zingaraed ourselves from top to toe. And when we were sitting having dinner during the show, this girl leaned over from the table next door to us and she said, "Did you by any chance drop a coffee machine off a few weeks ago for servicing?" And I said, "Yes." And it was the lady from the store. She had actually taken my machine from me. When I went, that day that I went in, I wasn't wearing a scrap of makeup. I was just, it was one of my chore days. And it shows how being really, really distinctive can make you phenomenally memorable. Anyway, I've got dogs. Excuse my dogs. But like how just that hairstyle, that distinctive brand element had traveled from one city in South Africa to another, traveled more than 30 kilometers. So I'm older now and I'm less inclined to spend 3 hours at my beloved hairdresser getting my hair into that kind of shape every 4 weeks. But but I do look back on that representation of my personal brand with great fondness. And there's another lesson in this, and that is that brands evolve over time. Our brands mature. We've all seen the big brands on the supermarket shelves undergoing rebranding every now and again, a careful, slow process of rebranding. And so my question to you is it time that you re-looked at your personal brand and kind of, grew it up a little bit? getting on to the third point that I wanted to talk about, and that was emotional engagement. So there's been this amazing long-term behavioral study it was started by Professor Susan Fisk and Amy Cuddy, plus a group of other people. And they established in their research that people were the first brands and faces were the first logos. They then went on over time and identified that there are two factors on a continuum that the most successful brands kind of figure on. Okay, so the one is this warmth continuum, and the other one is this competence continuum. And the most successful and sustainable brands rank high in both the warmth and the competence factors. So let me break those down for you a little bit more. Warmth is things like being respectful, caring, trustworthy, honest, sociable, moral, tolerant, happy, good-natured, sincere, humorous. There are lots of aspects to warmth. It's not just like soft and warm and fuzzy. But when we meet someone for the first time, going back to our ancestors, we are hardwired to ask ourselves at a subconscious level, is this person a friend or a foe, first and foremost? And secondly, we then assess their competence to either harm or help us. So competence consists of things like agency, their actual agency. Do they have the ability? Intelligence, efficiency, industriousness, reliability, artistic abilities, practical, whether they're practical or resourceful. And oh my goodness. I then put a smiley face in my notes, and I can't remember what I was going to share it with you. But referring back to that post of mine that was so popular, the one that showed my dog, it's part of building, or it gave you a little bit of an insight into my personal life, and would have gone some way towards building like pushing me along the warmth continuum. I didn't do it because of that reason, but it would have probably had that result with you, particularly if you like dogs. So let's see, there haven't been, oh, thank you, Matt Duke. I see there haven't been any questions so far. Don't forget that you can check out my series of 2-hour in-person workshops that'll be taking place in Joburg every Friday from next week. Details are in the events section of my Niche Intelligence Facebook page. If you have any questions that are unrelated to this live video, feel free to send me a direct message at any time. I will come back to you. And just to recap what we spoke about, in summary, we've spoken about the neuroscience of branding and how the brain loves novelty, and you need to capture the attention of your audience. You need to capture it, and you need to maintain something like state capture. Hey, we need to engage the emotions of our potential clients and pay attention to how we show up in terms of both the warmth and the competence factors. And it's a good idea to take note of the aspects that I mentioned, and actually kind of review how you're doing against each of those individual warmth and competence, when I broke it down in a little bit more detail. Finally, we need to make sure, or we need to remember that successful brands are memorable brands. And with that, I am just about done. Next Thursday, I'm going to be talking about 3 of the 7 stages in the customer journey, and what you can tweak how you can tweak things to make your clients more aware of your brand and turn them into a brand advocate. And before I sign off, remember that you are your own brand custodian. And if you don't manage your brand, leverage your brand, and showcase it, nobody else will. So thanks for joining me. Thank you, Mac, and thanks for the positive comments. And I'll see you online. Hopefully see you next Thursday for my next live.